The durable performance leader. What changes when you manage the system? Many leaders judge themselves by how much they carry, how many problems they solve, how available they are, how quickly they respond, how many decisions they personally improve, how much pressure they absorb, how much failure they prevent from becoming visible. Those things can matter, but they do not tell you whether leadership is making the organization more durable. A leader can work extremely hard and still create a system that is increasingly dependent on them. They can be supportive and still weaken local judgment. They can ask for visibility and still receive less truth. They can speak clearly about accountability while authority remains somewhere else. They can protect people with good intentions while teaching the organization that standards are negotiable. That is why durable leadership requires a different measure. Not simply, how much am I doing, but what is my leadership making more normal? Are decisions becoming clearer or more centralized? Is truth arriving earlier or becoming more packaged? Are managers developing judgment or becoming better at preparing issues for the center? Are standards becoming more predictable or more selective? Is the organization becoming more capable or simply more dependent on the leader? Those are questions of system effect. And system effect is the real operating evidence of leadership. A durable performance leader still manages people. They still coach, correct, support, set expectations, develop talent, make difficult decisions, but they do not stop at the individual level. They also manage the structure, shaping individual behavior. That is the shift. From managing incidents to managing patterns. From personally carrying the organization to designing the conditions in which the organization can carry legitimate responsibility. From being the strongest problem solver in the system to building a system that solves more problems at the proper level. The first thing that changes is how the leader interprets recurring failure. An isolated mistake may belong mainly to one person. A recurring category of failure may be telling the truth about the system. If several capable managers hesitate before making routine decisions, the problem may not be confidence. It may be unclear authority. If multiple teams keep missing deadlines, the problem may not be urgency. It may be competing priorities, unresolved dependencies, or approval drag. If bad news repeatedly reaches leadership late, the problem may not be communication skill. It may be a system that makes uncomfortable truth politically expensive. If commitments repeatedly return to meetings unresolved, the problem may not be personal accountability. It may be vague ownership, limited authority, weak follow-up, or standards that carry no meaningful response. The durable performance leader asks, what keeps making this outcome likely? What does the system reward? What does it delay? What does it hide? What does it escalate? What does it tolerate? What does it teach reasonable people to do? This does not remove personal responsibility. People remain responsible for judgment, behavior, discipline, and choices. But leaders are responsible for whether the system makes strong behavior possible, visible, and rational. That brings us to the 5 forces: incentives, authority, information flow, accountability, consequence. The durable performance leader does not manage these as unrelated topics. They understand that the 5 forces interact. Incentives determine direction. They teach people what behavior wins. Authority determines capability. It establishes who can act, decide, and carry legitimate responsibility. Information flow determines correction. Leaders cannot respond effectively to reality they cannot see. Accountability determines expectation. It clarifies who owns what, by when, with what authority, and to what standard. Consequence determines trust. It tells the organization whether the stated standard will still apply when enforcement becomes uncomfortable. When these forces align, performance becomes easier to sustain. When they separate, drift begins. An organization may say it values ownership while pulling decisions upward. It may ask for truth while reacting badly to difficult information. It may demand accountability while leaving priorities unresolved. It may describe standards clearly while protecting high performers from consequence. Each contradiction teaches the system something, and the system learns from what happens more than from what leadership intends. The second major change is that the leader stops using personal intervention as the default operating model. Many capable leaders become organizational centers without intending to. Important decisions move toward them. Cross-functional problems reach them. Managers request their interpretation. Teams prepare increasingly detailed updates. The leader becomes useful everywhere, then necessary everywhere. Eventually, the leader feels overloaded, but overload at the center may be more than a capacity problem. It may be evidence of structural dependence. The question is not whether the leader adds value. They probably do. The question is whether their value is expanding capability throughout the system or accumulating capability at the center. A durable performance leader returns routine decisions to the proper level. They define decision owners, clarify boundaries, separate input from approval, establish escalation thresholds, and protect legitimate local decisions after they are made. They do not override simply because they would have chosen differently. They allow bounded variation because judgment develops through legitimate use. This may create some short-term imperfection, but an organization cannot build distributed capability if the senior leader must optimize every decision personally. Strong leadership does not mean every answer originates at the top. It means the system produces increasingly sound decisions without unnecessary dependence on the top. The third change is how the leader manages information. Weak systems often respond to uncertainty with more visibility, more dashboards, more updates, more meetings, more executive summaries, more reporting. The leader feels more informed, but the organization may be producing more artifacts and less truth. A durable performance leader protects signal quality over signal volume. They ask, what decision does this report change? What risk does this dashboard surface early? Who owns the response? What would break if this meeting disappeared? Are people using time to improve the work or to represent the work upward? They also examine their own reaction to bad news, because every time difficult information arrives, leadership teaches the system how future information should travel. If truth triggers panic, blame, unnecessary intervention, or public embarrassment, truth becomes more expensive. The next update becomes more careful, more polished, and less youthful. Durable leaders make difficult truth safe enough to travel early, while keeping standards strong enough to require correction. They do not confuse psychological safety with protection from responsibility. They create an environment where truth can arrive without unnecessary fear, and where the truth still leads to action. The fourth change is how accountability operates. A durable performance leader does not rely on speeches about ownership. They make ownership operational. For every important commitment, what is the required outcome? Who owns it? What authority does that person hold? What standard defines completion? When will it be reviewed? What changes if the commitment continues to slip? This structure removes ambiguity. It also forces leadership to confront contradictions. A person cannot be held fully accountable for a result they cannot materially influence. A deadline is not real if leadership keeps adding priorities without removing anything. Ownership is not clear if every interested stakeholder behaves like an approver. Follow-up is not accountability if the meeting only produces another explanation. The durable performance leader aligns responsibility with authority and follow-up with consequence. The fifth change is enforcement. The leader understands that the real standard is revealed under pressure, not when enforcement is easy, when the person is valuable, when the quarter is difficult, when correction threatens an important relationship, when the person is senior, when the visible results still look strong. Durable leaders do not require harshness. They require predictability. They protect dignity. They examine context. They distinguish honest mistakes from repeated avoidance. But they do not allow status, proximity, or output to make the standard optional, because every exception teaches. Every delay teaches. Every protected behavior teaches. The organization is always learning what leadership truly believes. The sixth change is what the leader does with structural drag. They stop assuming that more pressure is the first answer to slower execution. They examine what the organization is carrying. Old initiatives, meetings that no longer change decisions, reports that create reassurance without action, approval layers that outlived the risk that created them, repeated rework, unresolved commitments, temporary controls that became permanent. Then they remove. Not because less work is automatically better, because effort should reach outcomes instead of being converted into friction. Subtraction is not retreat. It is structural discipline. The seventh change is how the leader develops other leaders. Weak leadership systems collect dependence. Strong leadership systems expand capability. A durable performance leader does more than answer questions, provide support, or model good judgment. They create real opportunities for others to carry ownership, to make decisions, to experience bounded consequence, to hold standards, to absorb appropriate pressure, to reason fully before the senior leader responds, and to receive public backing when they act legitimately inside their authority. People do not become stronger simply by working near a strong leader. They become stronger by carrying real responsibility inside a structure that allows judgment to mature. The test is not whether people value the leader's advice. The test is whether fewer issues require that advice over time. Are managers bringing complete recommendations? Are decisions remaining at the right level? Can the organization function for a period without waiting for the senior leader? Are leadership standards reproduced beneath the leader rather than concentrated inside them? That is leadership multiplication. The final change is cadence. Durable leaders do not wait for failure before examining structure. They audit during strength, because strong results do not prove that the system is healthy. High performers may be compensating. Managers may be smoothing friction. Temporary controls may still be accumulating. Information may already be compressing. Authority may already be migrating. The system may remain successful while becoming more fragile. So the durable performance leader creates recurring structural maintenance. What are we rewarding? Where has authority moved? What information is being filtered? Where is accountability symbolic? Where is consequence inconsistent? What has accumulated? What should stop? Where are leaders beneath us becoming stronger? This is not pessimism. It is maintenance. Durability requires recurring recalibration, because drift does not stop simply because performance is currently strong. So, here is the durable performance leader self-test. What becomes more true because you are here? Do people tell you difficult truths earlier or later? Do routine decisions stay close to the work or move upward for protection? Are managers developing judgment or developing skill at anticipating your preferences? Is reporting becoming cleaner and lighter or heavier and more performative? Are standards predictable regardless of status? Does accountability come with legitimate authority? Are high performers strengthening the system or buying exemption from it? Is structural drag being removed or merely absorbed by capable people? Is the organization less dependent on your personal intervention than it was a year ago? And what part of your leadership feels most valuable to you, but may be teaching the system the wrong lesson? These questions are uncomfortable. They should be, because leadership is not finally judged by intention. The system records what actually happened. What happened to authority? What happened to truth? What happened to ownership? What happened to standards? What happened to capability? What happened to dependence? That is system effect. And that is the real test of durable leadership. The durable performance leader manages people, but not only people. They manage the conditions around the work. They design deliberately. They diagnose patterns. They align the 5 forces. They remove drag. They restore ownership. They build capability beneath them. They enforce standards predictably. And they maintain the system before visible failure makes correction unavoidable. Because leadership is not ultimately what the leader says, carries, or hopes. Leadership is what the system becomes because the leader was there. If this way of thinking is useful, visit curtisstoaks.com. Start with the drift diagnostic to examine where authority, incentives, information flow, accountability, consequence, or structural drag may be weakening performance inside your organization. Subscribe to this channel for more videos. Performance is structural, durability is engineered, and durable leadership begins when you manage the system, not just the people.